Maggie had a holiday tradition, though it wasn't very traditional. Her dad had introduced her to it years ago, back when it was picking up gifts left out by family. Only years later did she realize those weren't their gifts to take. That night, Maggie's haul included the usual: a couple of electronics, department store gift boxes, and one oddity. It was wrapped in deep red paper with a golden bow, no label, no shipping tape, no address. Waiting for her, like every other package. She hesitated, but grabbed it. Back at her apartment, she set it aside while she sorted through the other packages. But the red box in the corner of her eye was begging for attention. She opened it, confused at first. Inside was a doll's arm, small porcelain, with faded pink paint on its fingers. A realization crept in. But there's no way it belonged to Lulu, her favorite doll as a child. A doll she hadn't seen since childhood. Her hands trembled as she held the limb, confused. She searched the box for a note, but there was nothing. Just the arm. Maggie went to sleep that night in denial, telling herself it was a sick coincidence. The next night, another red box appeared, right on her doorstep this time. Maggie's pulse quickened as she opened it, her palms soaking through the tissue paper she was clutching. It was Lulu's head. The face was cracked, one glass eye missing, but Maggie knew it was her. The tiny scar above the doll's lip was unmistakable. She'd accidentally dropped Lulu as a child, and her dad had glued the doll back together for her. Beneath the doll's head was a note, hastily scrawled in jagged handwriting. "Do you remember now?" Maggie's chest tightened. She did remember. Lulu had been her companion during those porch-hopping outings with her dad. She'd carried the doll with her as they collected gifts. She even remembered clutching Lulu tightly on that night, the one with the shadow in the window. She tried to shake the memory, but the details were flooding back too fast to stop. The shadow hadn't just been watching, it had opened the door. A man had shouted. Her dad had grabbed her hand and they'd run. She didn't remember what happened after that. Only her dad's trembling voice later that night. "We'll never go back there again, Maggie. Promise me." Her heart raced as the power flickered. A faint jingling of bells echoed from outside. She peeked out the window and saw a figure in a Santa suit across the street, staring directly at her. The doorbell rang. Maggie froze, staring at the door. Slowly, she opened it. No one was there, just another box, smaller this time. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was an audio cassette and a cheap plastic player. She pressed play, and her father's voice crackled through. "Maggie," he began, "if you're hearing this, it means they found you." Her blood ran cold. In the background of the recording, she heard the faint jingling of bells, a sharp knock, and her father whispering, "Don't open the door." The recording stopped. The figure was still across the street. Before she could get back inside, Maggie heard the faint jingling of bells from her living room.